There are no accidents in life, only divine appointments. When you align your thoughts with truth, your reality begins to shift, often in miraculous ways. This is a story not merely of wealth, but of unwavering faith, spoken word and spiritual law. I stood at the edge of lack, with nothing in my hands, no roadmap, no resources, only a word, but it was not just any word. It was the seed of a vision, the spark of a destiny, the vibration of a new life waiting to unfold. You see, the spoken word carries power, more power than most dare to believe. It is the invisible force that moves the visible world, and when it is spoken in faith, backed by certainty, not fear, not doubt, it becomes a creative decree. That word became my wealth, my wisdom, and my way forward. I didn't chase the millions. I spoke alignment. I declared favor. I affirmed truth. And life by divine law obeyed the voice of faith. In this journey, I'll share how one word, believed, spoken and acted upon, led to breakthroughs, opened doors man could not shut, and made me a millionaire by the age of 26. This isn't about chance. It's about law, spiritual law, and when you know it, speak it, and stand firm in it. Nothing is withheld. The spoken word is not merely a means of communication, it is a tool of creation. Every word carries vibration, intention, and energy, and when it is released into the world with faith, it has the power to shape reality. This isn't just poetic language or positive thinking. It is a spiritual truth that governs the very fabric of our existence. The unseen precedes the seen. Before anything comes into physical form, it exists first as an idea, a vibration, a word, and those who understand this principle can begin to speak not from their current condition, but from the future they desire to manifest. When I had nothing, no money, no backing, no influence, I had only one thing, a word. That word wasn't something I heard from another person. It was something born deep within me, placed by a higher power, waiting to be released. And I learned that if I spoke that word with confidence, not as a wish, not as a plea, but as a decree, then the world around me would begin to rearrange itself accordingly. Words are seeds, and the soil is your life. When spoken with belief, they begin to take root, grow, and eventually bear fruit. But most people speak carelessly, unaware that every statement is a command to the universe, either for increase or for lack, for victory or for defeat. I realized early on that the difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck is often not talent or opportunity, but the words they choose to speak over themselves. Most people speak what they see. They look at their empty bank account and say, "I'm broke." They look at their setbacks and say, "I'm a failure." But when you understand the creative power of your words, you stop describing your life and start declaring your life. You speak from vision, not from circumstance. You say, "I am wealthy," even if there's no money in your wallet. You say, "I am favored," even if doors are closing. You say, "I am destined," even when all signs say otherwise. Because faith isn't about lying to yourself. It's about aligning with truth that hasn't yet shown up in the natural world. There's a spiritual law that says, "Call those things that be not as though they were." That's not fantasy. That's not denial. That's divine strategy. It means you have been given authority to name your experience before it happens. What you name, you claim. What you declare, you prepare for. And every time you speak a word with belief, you are setting the stage for its fulfillment. I practiced this every day. I would wake up and speak words of power over my life. I didn't wait until things looked better. I spoke it when everything looked hopeless. That's when your word is tested, when you have no proof, only the promise. And let me be clear, this isn't about manipulating God or forcing the universe. It's about cooperating with a higher order, a divine law that responds to faith-filled speech. The word spoken with confidence is like a seed planted in fertile ground. It may not sprout overnight, but it will not return void. It will accomplish its purpose. I've seen it happen again and again. I've spoken healing over sickness, and strength showed up. I've spoken peace in the middle of storms, and calm came. I've spoken increase when I was surrounded by lack, and doors opened where there were only walls. It's not magic, it's mastery. The mastery of your mind, your heart, and most importantly, your mouth. Many people cancel their own blessings with their words. They pray for success, and then speak doubt. The next minute, they ask for favor, and then complain about how unfair life is. That's double-mindedness, and it produces nothing. But when your word is consistent, when it flows from a place of faith and conviction, it becomes a force that shapes your reality. I had no special advantage. I didn't come from wealth. I didn't inherit connections. What I had was a word I believed, a word I spoke, a word I refused to let go of. And that word, though invisible at first, became the blueprint for everything that followed. It attracted ideas, people, and opportunities. It stirred courage within me when I wanted to give up. It reminded me that what I say in faith carries more power than what I see with my eyes. And so I say to you, never underestimate the power of your word. Speak not from your wounds, but from your worth. Speak not from your limits, but from your calling. Your word is your wand. Use it not to describe the prison, but to unlock the gate. Speak life, and life will come. Speak abundance, and abundance will find you. Speak destiny, and destiny will respond. It all begins with a word, your word. Speak it boldly. Speak it faithfully. Speak it until it becomes flesh. Everything in life is governed by laws, natural laws, emotional laws, and above all spiritual laws. Just as gravity holds the physical world in order, divine law holds the invisible realm in alignment. And when a person learns to bring their thoughts into harmony with these higher laws, they begin to experience a life that flows with purpose, power, and provision. Aligning your thoughts with divine law is not a one-time decision, it is a moment-by-moment discipline. It means you no longer allow your thoughts to be ruled by circumstances, emotions, or fear. Instead, you surrender your mind to truth, unchanging eternal truth that doesn't waver when the world does. The first and most important realization is that your thoughts are not neutral. Every thought carries a charge, and that charge either aligns you with divine flow or pushes you out of alignment. When your thoughts are filled with fear, doubt, jealousy, or resentment, you are living out of sync with the spiritual laws that govern peace, prosperity, and fulfillment. Divine law is based on love, faith, forgiveness, trust, and abundance. So when you think thoughts that reflect those realities, you align yourself with the very fabric of creation. You become a vessel through which divine energy can move unhindered. I learned this truth during one of the lowest seasons of my life. Everything external was failing. Money was gone. Relationships were broken. Opportunities had dried up. It would have been easy, even logical, to think thoughts of defeat, self-pity, and blame. But something in me whispered, if you continue to think from the level of your problem, you'll never rise to the level of your purpose. That was a turning point. I stopped feeding my mind with negative thoughts. I stopped rehearsing my failures, and started realigning my thinking with divine promises. Instead of saying, I can't, I said, with God, all things are possible. Instead of saying, there's not enough, I said, my supply is unlimited and flows to me freely. I didn't always feel it, and I didn't always see it, but I trained my mind to think in agreement with spiritual truth, not emotional reaction. That's what alignment is. It's when your inner world reflects the order of the divine, regardless of what your outer world looks like. It's the decision to think from heaven's perspective, not the world's opinion. Alignment doesn't mean perfection. It means intention. It means when a thought of worry comes, you don't entertain it, you replace it. When a thought of failure enters, you don't rehearse it, you rebuke it. You choose to think thoughts that match what God says, not what fear says. And over time, those thoughts begin to create new pathways in your mind. They begin to open doors of faith and clarity that were once locked by doubt and confusion. I also discovered that when my thoughts aligned with divine law, I began to attract things that seemed impossible before. Opportunities began to show up that I hadn't chased. People came into my life who carried answers and resources. Doors opened that effort alone could not open. Why? Because spiritual law responds to spiritual alignment. It's not about striving, it's about agreement. When your thoughts are in agreement with divine principles, you become a magnet for divine outcomes. But this doesn't happen passively. You have to take ownership of your mind. You have to guard it like a gate. You have to feed it with truth daily. That means reading words that lift you, meditating on promises that ground you, and rejecting thoughts that lower you. Your mind is sacred ground, and what you allow to grow there determines the harvest you receive. One of the most powerful shifts I ever made was when I realized that abundance was not something I had to chase, it was something I had to align with. I stopped begging for blessings and started thinking from a place of already being blessed. I stopped thinking like a victim, and started thinking like a vessel. That shift in thought created a shift in reality, because what you think consistently becomes what you believe, and what you believe determines what you receive. When your thoughts align with divine law, peace replaces anxiety, confidence replaces fear, clarity replaces confusion, and above all, movement replaces stagnation. Life begins to move again, not because the world changed, but because you changed your position within it. You rose to a higher frequency. You tuned into a different broadcast. You no longer reacted to life, you started co-creating with it. It all begins in the mind, not just with random positivity, but with disciplined agreement with love, with truth, with provision, with power. That alignment is what positions you for divine breakthroughs. When the mind is right, the path unfolds. When your thinking is aligned, your life becomes a reflection of the unseen order that governs all things. So if you're stuck, if you feel like nothing is moving, don't first change your actions. Change your thoughts. Ask yourself, am I thinking in agreement with divine law, or in agreement with my fear? Realign, and watch what happens. Because the mind aligned with truth cannot be stopped. It becomes a force so powerful, so magnetic, that even mountains must move. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to stand in truth, even when fear is present. When everything around you says it's over, when you have no visible resources, no support, no open doors, it is faith that tells you to keep walking. Faith is the refusal to let circumstances dictate your identity, your future, or your actions. And the greatest test of faith always comes in the face of lack. When the bank account is empty, when the opportunities are gone, when people walk away, when nothing seems to be working, that is when true faith is forged. Because anyone can believe when the evidence is on their side. But it takes another kind of strength, a spiritual resolve, to believe when nothing makes sense. In those moments, fear will speak loud. It will tell you that you're finished. It will replay every past failure. It will show you everything you lack, and none of what is still possible. It will magnify the void until it looks like your entire future has collapsed. But fear, no matter how loud, is a liar, and if you let it guide your thoughts, it will keep you small, silent, and stuck. That's why in seasons of lack, you must choose to believe something greater than what you see. You must anchor yourself in the unseen, in the words spoken over your life, in the promise that still burns inside you. I remember standing in a place where I had every reason to quit. Nothing was working. I had no savings, no connections, no backup plan. But I had a choice, to let the lack define me, or to let faith rise in me. I chose faith. Not because it was easy, not because I felt confident, but because I knew deep down that my situation wasn't the final word. I knew that lack is a condition, not an identity, and I refused to speak the language of defeat. I refused to say I can't. I refused to settle into the comfort of victimhood. Instead, I began to speak what I wanted to see, not what I currently saw. I said, I am provided for. Doors are opening. I am guided, even in the dark. That's not denial. That's spiritual alignment. That's what walking by faith looks like. You stop giving fear your voice. You stop letting lack dominate your mind. You declare provision even when it hasn't shown up. And something powerful happens when you do. Your energy shifts. Your decisions change. You become open to ideas, opportunities, and strategies that fear had blinded you to. Faith unlocks creativity. It opens the mind to solutions that scarcity thinking can never see. It gives you the courage to take a step even when you can't see the whole staircase. Many people wait for conditions to be perfect before they act. They want confirmation, security, assurance. But that's not how faith works. Faith moves first. It acts when the ground is still shaking. It believes when the road is still unclear. It takes the leap, trusting that the net will appear. And often, it is that very act of belief that causes the provision to manifest. It's not that the resources weren't there. They were always waiting for you to come into alignment, waiting for you to rise above the fear and step into the unknown. In every season of lack I've faced, I learned this: lack is a test, not of your worth, but of your awareness. It tests whether you'll focus on what's missing or on what's still possible. It tests whether you'll speak from fear or from faith. And it tests whether you truly believe that your source is bigger than your current situation. Most of us have been trained to panic in lack. But lack is not your enemy. It's your invitation. An invitation to elevate your thinking, to deepen your trust, and to awaken the power within you. When you choose faith over fear and lack, you shift your entire life trajectory. You break cycles of scarcity. You silence the voice of shame. You stop repeating generational patterns of limitation, and you become a living example of what it means to walk by spiritual law, not by sight. You show others that it's not what you have in your hands that determines your future, it's what you hold in your spirit. And that truth will take you further than any material resource ever could. So don't despise your season of lack. Don't curse the silence, the emptiness, the unknown. Let it shape your faith. Let it refine your focus. Let it strip away everything that was never meant to sustain you. And as you do, hold to your word. Speak it, believe it, stand on it, no matter what. Because if you can hold your faith in lack, you can hold your vision in abundance. If you can speak life in the valley, you will command mountains. And if you can rise above fear, even when all seems lost, then nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop you. There is a divine principle that few understand, but even fewer truly live by. You must speak what you desire, before you see it. Not after, not when it feels safe, not when the evidence supports it, but before it exists in the natural. This is the essence of faith. This is the foundation of creation. You are not waiting on life to confirm your vision. Life is waiting on you to declare it. And when you begin to speak prosperity before it exists, you are not pretending, you are participating in spiritual law. You are planting the seed of what is to come. This was the turning point in my life. I was surrounded by lack. My bank account was empty. My environment reflected struggle. But I refused to let my mouth echo my lack. I decided I would speak only what I wanted to see, even if it made no logical sense. I declared abundance when I had nothing. I spoke increase when every door was closed. I affirmed wealth when all I could see was debt, not because I was trying to trick myself, but because I understood a truth greater than the facts. Words create reality. Most people make the mistake of speaking only what they see. They react with their language. They describe their life rather than design it. But your words are not meant to mirror your circumstances. They are meant to mold them. You are not called to report the facts. You are called to declare the truth. And truth is not always visible at first. That's why speaking prosperity before it exists is so powerful. It activates the unseen realm. It tells the invisible forces of creation, I am ready, I believe, I align. There were days I had to speak prosperity with tears in my eyes. Days when it felt foolish. Days when everything screamed, you're lying to yourself. But I kept speaking. I kept affirming. I kept declaring, not from desperation, but from identity. I wasn't trying to become prosperous. I was aligning with who I already was in the spirit. Prosperity wasn't something I was chasing. It was something I was calling forth, and my words were the invitation. Everything that manifests begins with a word. Nothing appears in your world until it first appears in your mouth. The universe does not respond to fear, worry, or complaint. It responds to clarity, confidence, and conviction. When you say, I am wealthy, you're not talking about your current balance. You're talking about your identity. You're declaring what's already true in the spiritual realm. And over time, your external life begins to rise and match the internal frequency of your declarations. Speaking prosperity before it exists requires boldness. It means you must stop apologizing for your vision. You must stop shrinking to make others comfortable. It means you stop saying things like, I can't afford it, or I'll never get there. Every time you say those things, you are prophesying your own limitation. Instead, you must speak what aligns with your calling. Money flows to me. I am the head and not the tail. I live in overflow. These are not empty affirmations. They are spiritual truths you are choosing to stand on, even when the ground beneath you feels shaky. One of the greatest shifts in my life happened when I made a decision to watch my words. I realized that every word spoken in fear delayed my breakthrough, every word spoken in doubt blocked my blessing, so I stopped complaining. I stopped entertaining conversations of struggle. I started speaking as if everything I prayed for had already happened. I spoke like I was already there, and slowly the world began to rearrange itself around my words. People often ask, but what if I don't believe what I'm saying yet? Speak it anyway, your faith will catch up, because your words shape your thoughts, and your thoughts shape your beliefs. When you consistently declare prosperity, your subconscious begins to accept it. Your actions start to align with it. Your expectations rise to meet it, and life begins to unfold in new and unexpected ways. Speaking prosperity before it exists also means you act in agreement with your words. You don't just say it, you live it. You give even when it's hard. You invest in yourself even when it stretches you. You carry yourself with confidence, not arrogance, because you know who you are and what you carry. You stop waiting to be validated and start walking as if the promise has already been fulfilled. That's when you shift from wishing to walking, from hoping to having. I became a millionaire, not because I chased money, but because I spoke abundance long before I saw it. I lived as if it were already done. I moved as if doors would open. I gave thanks for blessings that hadn't yet arrived. That's not delusion, that's divine alignment. That's understanding that spiritual law does not wait for evidence. It creates it, and the mouth is the first builder. So speak, even when it feels awkward, even when your surroundings mock you, even when your past contradicts it. Speak prosperity over your life, your family, your future. Speak it until it becomes the only language you know. Speak it until lack can no longer live in your presence. Speak it until heaven moves, because the truth is, you are not waiting on money, you are waiting on your mouth. And when your words catch fire with faith, nothing can stop what's about to manifest. There comes a moment in every journey where speaking alone is no longer enough, where your words must be followed by action. Not just any action, but action that is inspired, aligned, and fueled by faith. Taking inspired action on divine promises is the bridge between vision and manifestation. It's where belief becomes behavior, where declarations become decisions. Too often people speak great things over their lives, but remain motionless, waiting for a sign, for perfect timing, or for a breakthrough to arrive without their involvement. But spiritual law does not reward passivity. It honors movement. It responds to those who step forward, even when the path is unclear. When you receive a divine promise, whether through prayer, revelation, or a deep inner knowing, it is not just a comfort, it's a call to action. It's an instruction wrapped in faith. And when you truly believe that promise, your next step is not to sit and wait, it is to move in the direction of that word. That's what I had to learn. I didn't have all the details, I didn't have all the connections, and in many cases I didn't even know where the provision would come from. But I understood this one truth. If God gave me the word, He would also provide the steps. My job was to trust enough to move. Inspiration is not random. It is the whisper of the divine, nudging you toward your destiny. It might be a strong urge to start writing, to call someone, to launch a small business, to leave an unhealthy environment, or to invest in yourself in a way that doesn't make sense yet. And when that urge comes, you must act, not later, not someday, but now. Because inspired action is time-sensitive, it's tied to divine timing. What you ignore today may not be available tomorrow in the same way. There is a window, and those who step through it unlock doors that effort alone could never open. Taking inspired action doesn't always look big or flashy. Sometimes it's quiet and internal. It could be choosing to forgive someone who wounded you, because that act frees your spirit to rise. It could be decluttering your space, preparing for the next season. It could be showing up to a place where your heart says, go, even when logic says. I remember taking steps that looked foolish to others, signing up for events I couldn't afford, putting in applications for roles I wasn't qualified for, or speaking about a future that hadn't yet appeared. But every step I took in alignment with the promise made me stronger, clearer, and more expectant. There is a divine momentum that builds when you take action. It sends a message to heaven and earth that you are serious, that you believe, that you are not just talking, you are becoming. And what you become through that process is more valuable than any material result. You become a person who is led by purpose, not fear. You become someone who knows how to move even when the crowd is standing still. You become a carrier of confidence, because you've seen what happens when faith touches action. The difference between waiting and working in faith is subtle, but profound. Waiting says, I'll move when everything is ready. Working in faith says, I'll move because I trust that everything I need will find me as I go. It is the same principle seen in the ancient stories of those who walked on water or saw walls fall, not because they had power, but because they acted on a word. They believed that if God said move, movement would make a way. Fear will always try to stop inspired action. It will tell you that you're not ready, not worthy, not capable. It will highlight your flaws, your past, and your limitations. But inspired action is not about being perfect, it's about being willing to look foolish, willing to start small, willing to fail forward, because each step, even the messy ones, moves you closer to fulfillment. The real danger is not in taking the wrong step, the real danger is in standing still when you were called to move. There is something powerful that happens when your thoughts, your words and your actions all align with the same vision. You become unstoppable. The obstacles may not disappear, but they lose their power to stop you, because now you're no longer just hoping, you're building. You're no longer just dreaming, you're walking. And life has a way of meeting you with provision, with clarity, and with favor when you refuse to retreat. I didn't become a millionaire by waiting for the right opportunity to show up. I became one by moving on the word I had. Even when the way seemed impossible, I kept taking steps. Each move unlocked the next. Each risk opened another level. And the more I acted, the more confident I became that divine promises are not just comforting words, they are blueprints, but they only work if you're willing to build. So take the step, make the call, write the plan, launch the idea, release the fear, say yes to the uncomfortable invitation. Don't wait for perfection. Wait never creates power, action does. When you act on a divine promise, heaven responds, doors open, paths clear, provision flows, but only to those who are bold enough to move before they see the finish line. Your miracle is not ahead of you, it's beneath your next step. Take it. Manifestation is not luck. It's not magic. It's the natural result of unwavering belief that refuses to bend, even in the presence of opposition. When belief is constant, deep, unshaken, and persistent, it draws what is unseen into what is seen. It brings what is invisible into form. Most people believe only when conditions are favorable. They believe when they see progress, when people agree with them, when the path looks smooth. But that kind of belief is conditional, and it produces weak, short-lived results. True manifestation comes through belief that stands firm, when nothing is working, when doors close, when silence answers your prayers. That is the belief that unlocks breakthrough. Unwavering belief is not about denying reality. It's about choosing which reality you align with. There is the reality of what your eyes see, and the reality of what your spirit knows. And every day, you choose which one has the final say. When you choose to stand on the reality of divine truth, on the word you've spoken, the promise you've received, you become immovable. Circumstances no longer control you. Delays no longer defeat you. You no longer second-guess your vision just because the journey gets hard. Instead, you become deeply rooted. You know what's yours, you know what you carry, and you don't let go. I learned this the hard way. There were days when everything in me wanted to quit, when the promise felt far away, and I questioned if it was all just a dream. But something inside said, hold the line, don't waver. I realized that belief is not a one-time decision, it's a daily discipline. It's waking up and choosing again to believe, even when your emotions scream otherwise. It's speaking your truth out loud, when fear tells you to stay silent. It's showing up to the vision, even when no one else can see it yet. That's how manifestation happens, not in one big leap, but in 1,000 quiet, consistent acts of belief. You must understand belief is energy. It creates a magnetic force around you. It attracts the people, the ideas, the opportunities, and the favor you need. Not because you're lucky, but because you've aligned your frequency with what you desire. When you truly believe something, your actions, your posture, your tone, your decisions, they all shift. You carry yourself differently. You stop chasing and start expecting. You stop begging and start declaring. That kind of energy cannot be ignored. Life responds to it, and more importantly, the unseen realm honors it. Unwavering belief also removes the need for validation. You don't need others to approve your vision. You don't need constant signs or confirmation. You believe because the word was enough. And when that's your posture, you gain power. Because now your faith isn't tied to the outcome, it's tied to the truth. And truth doesn't shift just because time passes. Truth is eternal. So even if the manifestation takes longer than expected, your belief doesn't die, it deepens. You begin to trust the process, knowing that delay is not denial. You know that what's meant for you cannot miss you. Many people give up just before the breakthrough. They get tired of holding on. They let doubt creep in and start speaking against the very thing they once believed in. And that doubt weakens their field. It disrupts the momentum. It tells the spiritual realm, I'm no longer in agreement with what I said. And manifestation slows down, not because the promise changed, but because the belief did. That's why unwavering belief is so vital. It is the container that holds the vision until it is ready to be born. There were seasons in my journey where I had no proof, only conviction. I had to look in the mirror and remind myself daily, it's already done. I had to walk into rooms as if I belonged, even when I didn't feel qualified. I had to make decisions based on where I was going, not where I currently was. That's what unwavering belief does. It keeps your eyes fixed ahead. It won't let you settle. It won't let you shrink. It pulls you forward, even when the path is uphill. And here's the beauty. When manifestation comes, when the vision becomes real, it never surprises the one who believed. Because in your spirit you already lived it. You already saw it. You already felt it. It was yours long before it arrived. That's why unwavering belief is the secret. Because it allows you to live in the end before you see the beginning. It positions you as the owner of the vision, not just the seeker. And life responds to ownership. So if you're holding a vision right now, if you've spoken a word, received a promise, dared to dream, don't let time or opposition weaken your belief. Guard it like treasure. Speak it like truth. Stand in it like it's already here. Because when belief doesn't waver, manifestation is not a matter of if. It's only a matter of when. The moment you choose to believe and refuse to stop is the moment creation begins to take shape. You may not see it yet, but the shift has already started. Hold your ground, stay in alignment, and let the vision come to life. Everything begins with a word, but it's what you do with that word that determines your destiny. I didn't have wealth, influence, or connections. I had nothing the world would consider powerful or valuable, but I had faith. I had belief, and I had the boldness to speak what I could not yet see. That word became my foundation. That belief became my fuel, and my decision to act, to align, and to remain steadfast, despite fear, lack, or delay, became the path that led to everything I have today. You don't need to see the whole picture to start. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You don't need perfect timing or flawless execution. What you need is conviction. The kind that says, I may have nothing in my hands, but I have everything in my spirit. Speak the word. Think in alignment with truth. Reject fear. Act on the vision. And believe without wavering. Because if one word, backed by unwavering faith, could take me from nothing to a millionaire, by 26, imagine what it can do for you. The power isn't in what you have. The power is in what you believe. So speak boldly, move faithfully, and never forget the word in your mouth can build the life you were born to live.